Hello, everyone. My name is Sonia Hines, and I am the director and founder of Chesapeake Beach Professional Seminars. And I'm delighted to provide this webinar today. The topic is Who Let the Ants Out? And is cognitive behavior and play therapy techniques for dealing with automatic negative thoughts. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And here's my PowerPoint. Okay. All right. Who Let the Ants Out? Cognitive behavior therapy and play therapy to manage negative self-talk and anxiety. And again, my name is Sonia Hines, and I am a registered neuropsychotherapist. So let's see. The objective today is to identify the tenets of CBT, demonstrate a model for treating anxiety using cognitive behavior therapy and directive play therapy, and look at some key principles to teach parents of an anxious child. How do we treat, what can parents do? So what is anxiety? We know that anxiety is a normal reaction to stress, and it's a signal that something may be wrong, such as fear or danger, when none really exists. So it's normal to be anxious when we're in danger, we're afraid. But when there's no danger exists, there's nothing to be afraid of, and we are afraid, then that's anxiety. Excessive worry about something that has not happened yet is also anxiety. Anxiety activates fight, flight, fight, and freeze response, the automatic nervous system. So anxiety is triggered when we're feeling vulnerable, or we're feeling that we're in danger, or we're embarrassed or in trouble. It may be a motivator to get the job done. It helps us to be cautious, so that all anxiety is not bad, but when it's excessive, too much anxiety causes distress. Okay. Anxiety mimics attention deficit hyperactivity disorder symptoms. And so it's well known that ADHD is overly diagnosed. And because it's so many other conditions is similar, the symptoms are similar to ADHD. It is more common in girls than in boys. And someone said, FEAR is false evidence appearing real. The evidence looks real, but it's really in our mind, right? It's false in our mind. So what we do in a situation, when we're faced with a situation, what we do is based on what we see, what we understand, mainly our perception. And with anxiety, when we have anxiety, we're not always thinking clearly. So our perceptions could be off. And that's called cognitive distortion. We're going to talk about cognitive distortion. So when is anxiety harmful? Anxiety is not helpful when there's no real danger, but the worry persists, or a false alarm is not ignored. Sometimes we have a bad feeling and we ignore it because we know it can't be. But when we don't ignore it over and over, then it becomes anxiety. With anxiety, we can't focus on the task. And then the stress, started out with a little bit of stress, then it becomes distressful. If we don't manage anxiety, it might lead to panic attacks and depression. Okay, there's this DSM-5, which guides us with the diagnosis, has several different forms of anxiety. The most common type of anxiety in children is separation anxiety. Most probably misdiagnosed or not diagnosed as they should be is selective mutism. But anxiety can be very difficult to to treat once it gets more complicated. Anxiety can also be induced by medication and substance abuse. A lot of substance abusers suffer from anxiety, particularly when they're off the medication. And so in addition to the medication, the drugs that they might abuse, they might be on Xanax or Clonopin and things like that. Other types of anti-anxiety medication. Anxiety disorder may be also due to a medical condition, and anxiety disorder, an OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is a form of anxiety, which can be more complicated, so the treatment is different. Social anxiety is the most common type of anxiety in children. And social anxiety is exaggerated fear of embarrassment. I don't want to be embarrassed or humiliated, so I'm not going to stand in front of the class. In fact, I'm not going to school because kids might laugh at me. And if I speak up, they might know that I'm different than other kids. So it's persistent fear of social performance situations. And then it's the physical symptoms of anxiety. Physical symptoms of anxiety when in the feared social situation. So the child in a social situation starts showing symptoms of anxiety. Avoidance of feared situation. They don't want to go to a birthday party. They don't want to go to the park. They avoid social situations. When anxiety interferes with daily routine, school and work, we need intervention. And it might persist for 6 months or longer. So Pandas and Pans is an interesting phenomena. Pandas is a sudden major changes in personality and behavior and movement after strep infection. What happens is that there's the faulty immune system infects the brain tissue, so that the brain system, the immune system becomes faulty, and it infects the brain, causing symptoms of severe anxiety. And so that if you have a child that suddenly becomes excessively fearful and anxious, if you tie that to a recent strep infection, you might be able to get the Pandas diagnosis. And the treatment is a doses of antibiotics. Now, Pans is similar to Pandas, except it's without the strep infection. It's also a controversial diagnosis. So the cycle of anxiety, you have an event. You always have an event, but is the person's perception of the event that causes them to give a certain meaning to the event, and that, if it's a negative meaning, causes an automatic negative thought, which again puts you into anxiety, anger, depression, and obsession. So it's an event. Then you have the thought, the feeling, and the behavior. So what happens in the brain and the body when there's anxiety? The brain secretes cortisol, which is a stress hormone, to help us deal with stress. But too much cortisol can cause the body to be the immune system to be compromised. Too much cortisol can interfere with your memory and can cause depression. And the body also secretes adrenaline, causing the increased heart rate and breathing rate. And that becomes very difficult to process and to think. So what happens in the brain and the body? You have racing heart, heavy breathing, nausea, dizziness, chest pains, can't think straight, can't focus, sweaty palms. And what do? Take deep breaths. And that's the reason why we teach breathing and yoga, because it's all in the breathing. Every breath has a thinking process. Every thought has a breathing pattern. So if I'm anxious, then I'm going to breathe heavy. If I'm playing and I'm happy, my breathing is normal. So what causes anxiety? Anxiety is hereditary and is magnified when we hear other people stressing about situations. If a parent has a child and the parent has anxiety and the parent walks around the house worrying about how am I gonna pay this bill? What am I gonna do? How am I gonna handle the situation? Oh, I can't send the kids to school. This is too stressful. Kids pick that up, they internalize it, and then they become stressed out as well. So going back to school can be very stressful for kids, or it can be very, very happy. I have kids that are so happy that they're going back to school. And it's so heartwarming to hear kids say, I miss my teacher. I want to go back to school. But they have so many kids that are anxious about getting COVID, falling behind in school, or having to deal with the bullies that they left. And so you have both sides of the fence with that, with the school situation. Other causes of anxiety is environmental factors. If you live in an area where there is dangerous drive-by shootings and violence in the community, it can be anxious, can cause anxiety. Being bullied, police brutality. We had the time with Black Lives Matter and the young man that was killed with the officer's knee on his neck. And so that was pretty sad. And so all types of trauma and stress at school and work are some reasons for anxiety. So how is anxiety treated? So we know that anxiety needs to be managed, and it becomes a disorder when it becomes a disorder. When it becomes a disorder, then we do treatment. So CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, is one. Behavioral therapy, like gradual exposure, meditation, yoga, relaxation, and breathing. And then what's the medication? For the medication, we have anti-anxiety medication, which are usually the antidepressants. Because anti-anxiety medication can be very addictive, like Klonopin and Xanax can be very addictive, habit forming. So the antidepressants are usually Zoloft or Prozac and some of the SSRIs. And then we have play therapy techniques, which I will be talking about. So how to treat anxiety besides what I've talked about? Well, it says, there are different phrases that we use and metaphors. And someone came up with this. It says, don't feed the worry monster. The more you feed it, the bigger it gets. There's a book called Anxiety Cure for Kids, and it talks about, it says, so you say to the child, there's a monster in your brain that's trying to keep you in jail. The way to get out of jail is to stop feeding it fear. If you keep feeding it fear and worry, you're going to remain in jail, meaning that you're going to remain anxious and unable to enjoy your life. Okay. Instead, we need to face the fear. We need to face the fear as opposed to feeding the fear. Okay. So Oprah Winfrey, we all know who Oprah Winfrey is, one of the most famous people on the face of the earth. And she said that whatever you fear most has no power. It is your fear that has the power. So fear has power over us, and the thing itself, the thing that we are afraid of, cannot touch us. But if you allow your fear to seep into your mind and overtake your thoughts, it would rob you of your life. So we're not talking about real fear, like fear of a lion or fear of falling off a cliff if you're near a cliff, not real fear. Talking about fear that's in our mind. So that, and I really like this fear, whatever you fear most has no power, but it's the fear that has the power. The thing itself cannot touch you, but if you allow your fear to seep into your mind and take your thoughts, it will rob you of your life. So the thing is to face our fear, face it with help, face it gradually. So how to treat anxiety? We know that depression has to do with what was. People that are depressed worry about the past. But rather than worry about the past, we need to accept it. People worry about the past with regret. We cannot change the past. Anxiety is the what if. Anxiety, we worry about things that haven't happened yet. So it's the future with fear, is pessimism. So with anxiety, we need to let it go. Depression, we need to accept it. Anxiety, we need to let it go. The present is what we need to be concerned about. What is happening, the here and now. So we need to be present. Again, with depression is what was, we need to accept it. Anxiety is what if, we need to let the what if go. And we need to be in the present, in the here and now. Don't believe everything that comes to your mind. We need to be able to talk back to those thoughts and ignore them. All right, so how do we treat anxiety? Daniel Amen is a psychiatrist and he wrote the book, Your Brain is Always Listening. We need to tame the hidden dragons that control your happiness, habits, and hangups. So if you think of a dragon on your brain, we need to tame the dragon. And someone else said that we have in us a wolf and a dog. We need to don't feed the wolf, don't tame the wolf, tame the dog, feed the dog. If we ignore the wolf, it'll go away. But ignoring is much easier than said, I know. So what is cognitive behavior therapy? Cognitive behavior therapy is the top of the line treatment for anxiety, right? And it was created by Aaron Beck in the 1960s, and it's evidence-based. It's been proven to be over and over to be evidence-based. So cognitive behavior therapy was developed in the 60s to treat depression. And it's a form of psychotherapy that teaches you how to think differently in order to feel better. So it has to do with your thoughts, how to train your thoughts. And in 1950s, Albert Ellis developed rational emotive thinking therapy, which is similar to CBT. In the 1980s, David Burns popularized the CBT book with his bestseller, Feeling Good Handbook. And that's when people started to really talk about CBT. In 2002, Daniel Amen, child psychiatrist, he was in the Army and he was stationed at Walter Reed. And he published a book called Mind Coach, in which we use automatic thoughts, the ants, to teach cognitive distortion and how to get rid of them. In 2002, I was doing my internship, and I had a mentor who told me about his work. And I got the book, Mind Coach, and I used it with an 8-year-old. I gave the 8-year-old, he had ADHD and he also had anxiety. And I told him, I explained the process with the ants to him, and I gave him a homework. And so when he came back with the homework, he didn't do the homework, but it was his 4-year-old sister who was in the session with him that did the homework. And I thought, wow, this really works. And ever since, I've been finding different ways to use this concept. So what he says, what Dr. Amen proposed was, if you were hungry in the middle of the night and you went to the refrigerator to get a snack, and when you turned the light on, you saw ants crawling on the floor, what would you do with the ant? Some people would get rid of the ants. Some people would just feel sorry for the ant and not do anything. And so there's two ways to step on the ants, get rid of them. Another is to just let them be. But we all know if we have ants, we let them go about their business, sooner or later, you're going to have a whole lot more ants, because they send a signal to the others saying, hey, buddies, there's some crumbs here on the floor. You better come and get it. And you have an ant infestation sooner or later. So the best thing to do is to deal with the ants. And so the ants they're organized, they work together to trick your mind. And so if we can make a correlation between the real ants and the automatic negative thoughts. If we have one negative thought and like the ants, we don't clean them up or get rid of them, the negative thoughts will multiply and you would have a ant infestation on your brain. So we need to, because it's not the automatic thoughts, the negative thoughts sneak up when you least expect, and they're hard to get rid of. They're so much like real ants. All right. Okay, so automatic negative thoughts are obsessive thoughts that pop up automatically due to a particular stressor or trigger and causes anxiety, right? In order to treat the ants, A-N-T-S, you need to understand the types of, or the species. So cognitive distortions are what we call ants. And Aaron Beck came up with 12. Of these 12, Dr. Ammon extracted 9. So for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to talk about the 9 ants that Dr. Ammon came up with. Okay, so the cognitive distortions or the species of ants. So these are the 9 species of ants, right? These type of ants. Making things worse, which is catastrophizing ant, labeling or name calling, blaming, all, nothing, never, always thinking, fault finding, fortune telling, mind reading, and guilt thinking. All right, so all of these distortions, they're distortions because we exaggerate how often these things occur and how they occur. Because these things are all, or they're all possibilities, but it's the exaggeration that causes them to be distorted, is how we frame them. So making things worse is a catastrophizing ant. And so we can blow things out of proportion. The labeling ant is name calling. Sometimes we label ourselves as lazy or, or stupid, those kinds of things. One of the kids that I'm working with has autism. He doesn't understand that he has autism. Nobody ever told him that he had this disorder. And so what happens is that he knows that he's different. Other kids treat him different. So he says, I'm stupid, ain't I? You don't love me, Mom, or it's my fault. So he has all these negative thoughts because he doesn't understand what's going on with him. So I suggested to the parent that they explain to him in terms that he can understand that he has something called autism, and get a children's book and explain it to him. Sometimes there's the blaming ant, and the blaming ant is we blame other people for our mistakes. The teacher made me do it. All, nothing, never. All third graders are mean. I have nothing to wear. I have nothing to do. You never play with me. So that's exaggerating, right? Going for the negative. Always thinking, the always is you're always late. You're always mean to me. Well, there are times when I'm not. Fault finding is just that, just looking for little details to complain about. Fortune telling is trying to predict the future, but we predict something negative about the future. Mind reading is trying to determine what people are thinking, and then we come up with negative thoughts. And guilt thinking is feeling responsible for things that we shouldn't feel responsible for, and then getting upset about it. So let's go to the next slide. So then the making things worse is the catastrophizing. You're exaggerating every situation to be the worst possible outcome, as if the world is ending. I missed the school bus. My mom is going to hate me. I can't find my other sock. I can't leave the house. Oh no, I forgot my lunch. I'm going to starve. Well, if you missed the school bus, maybe you could problem solve. I can go to Sue's house. I know her very well. She's a good friend of our family. She'll take me to school. Or kids are Kids are wearing mixed match socks now. Or if you forgot your lunch, then the teacher can help you work through that. So there's solutions, but what we do is catastrophize sometimes. And then there's the labeling, right? Nobody likes a loser. I'm such a slob. I'm lazy. Blaming, it's your fault. He made me do it. She got in the way, right? Rather than accepting responsibility. It's where we distort the truth. So I had a situation where a client is upset because he didn't get his way. And he says, oh, the teacher favors the girls. I'm a boy. If a girl had my situation, the teacher would be a lot easier on her. And so he's blaming the teacher for something that he should have taken care of. Okay. All, nothing, never. Using strong words to exaggerate a situation or event. Okay. All third graders are mean. I have nothing to wear. I never win at this game. And then the always thinking, it's not that you're always thinking, but you use the word always in what you're saying to exaggerate how often something happens, right? And so the red flag is when you hear the word always, because nothing is just always. And then fault finding. That color doesn't go with your complexion. I did not clean the table enough. He missed a button. Fortune telling. No one will come to my birthday party. I will not make the team. It will rain on my birthday. Mind reading. I can tell she doesn't like my new dress. She's jealous of me. She thinks I copied her answers. It's my fault she got sick. I should be nice to her even though she disrespected me. It's my job to think of others first. It's just going for the negative. So this is the cognitive triangle. It's thinking, feeling, doing. And there's always so in situations, there's always an event and the perception of that event that influences and is influenced by our core beliefs. Core beliefs are things that we learn in childhood. You know, no one should hit you. If somebody hits you, you better hit them back. And so somebody does anything to me, I'm going to punch them out. Core beliefs could be, no one should tell me no because I get everything I want. And so if I have one item and I'm in line at the grocery store and someone has a basket full of items and I say, well, could you allow me to go in front of you? I only have one item. The person says no. And I give them a dirty look, the evil eye, because they said no. Well, I wasn't entitled. My core belief is I get what I want. Nobody tells me no. So then I get really mad. Okay. So what are some common core beliefs? I am not good enough. No one loves me. I'm not good enough at. I don't deserve this. I'm a screw up. I am dumb. I will never amount to anything. And to hear my client say some of these things is really sad because he does not understand that why he's different from other kids. And parents are going to start doing that and educating him about what autism is. So how do we treat anxiety? Okay, so how we treat anxiety? We treat anxiety, first we need to have a good assessment. Then we need to do psychoeducation. We need to educate about anxiety, psychoeducation. And then using cognitive behavior therapy, some behavioral interventions like setting limits. And then we have the 3 C's. Now, Aaron Beck came up with the 3 steps of treating anxiety. So first we have to be still and be able to be aware of our own thoughts, and that comes with mindfulness. We have to be grounded and be mindful and aware of what we're thinking and feeling so that we can catch ourselves having these negative self-talk. So the first thing you do is want to catch yourself having these thoughts. Then you want to check the thoughts, check the ant. So I said, check the thought and label the ant. The blue is what I interjected. So because Aaron Beck came up with catch, check, and change. I interjected label. So you want to check the ant, automatic negative thoughts, to see if there's any validity, and label it to see which ant it corresponds to. And then if it doesn't make sense, then you want to change the thought, right? And that's like getting rid of the ant for something else that does make sense. And so as part of the treatment, you can give the client homework. I hate to call it homework because kids don't like homework, but I don't know what else to call it, so I call it homework. And then doing journaling, writing down their thoughts. With the homework, I have a homework sheet I'm going to share with you. And I have children write down what the event was and how they responded, and do some journaling. In a journal, they could draw or they could write. And then you want to expose the child to triggers, exposure to triggers. Well, these are mild triggers. We don't want a child that is having a whole lot of problems, because you really need to have training in exposure therapy. And then you do want to do parent education, educate the parent about anxiety and about these steps, and the parent about controlling their own actions and behaviors and what they say and do that might trigger an anxiety response in the child. And then you want to celebrate success. Celebrating success is important. So how is anxiety treated? You want to keep the child active. If the child is on a soccer team, they can pretend to be kicking away the negative thought when they kick that soccer ball, right? And so physical activity helps to increase the dopamine in your brain. And so you're not as depressed and sad and having these negative thoughts. You want to have a stable diet, and so that your blood sugar is level and it doesn't plummet. So you don't want to have a high carbohydrate diet and then crash, and then your blood sugar goes down, and then the child gets irritable. You want to eliminate caffeine and alcohol, lots of sugar. You want to have a stable home environment as much as possible. And we know that that's not always possible. But you want to have a predictable daily routine, adequate rest and relaxation, and reasonable work and play schedule. Okay. So this is a video. I'm not going to play the video. You have the YouTube information here and the link, and you can watch that at your leisure. So go ahead, and maybe if you want to take a picture of this slide so that you can watch the video, that would be very helpful. Okay, so techniques to cope with anxiety: being aware of your body reaction to stress, right? How does your body react to stress? Is it, some people have stronger reaction than others, but know when it's coming on so that you can be proactive. Being aware of your feelings caused by automatic negative thoughts, and replace them with positive self-talk, right? Because if I have negative self-talk, that's going to cause me to feel depressed and angry. And then I might choose a negative behavior. So being aware of the anxiety is coming up, what my thought is, how I feel, I can be proactive to avoid the anxiety. So choosing productive behaviors to cope. The hookup is having, so let me stop share for a minute. The hookup is extending both hands and then cross at the wrist. Do this, hook your fingers up and bring it under, like this, under your chin. Close your eyes, breathe in through your nostrils. So take a deep breath through your nostrils. Hold it to the count of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then breathe out through your mouth to the count of 6. And I like this because you have kids that when they get upset, they run, they throw things, and they hit. But if your hands are locked like this and you're sitting and you try to keep them there and coach them through breathing, then they can't run and hit and do the things that they do. I just wanted to demonstrate that. Okay, so I go back to my screen share. Okay, belly breathing is also important. Belly breathing, butterfly breathing, and cookie breathing. So belly breathing is breathing in so that air gets into your belly, holding it to the count of 4, and breathing out so that you feel that the belly goes, the air goes out and then your belly goes down. Butterfly breathing, let me stop share again. Butterfly breathing is putting your wings on, right? You have wings, and the kids like this because they like to do things that keep them engaged with the breathing. So if you have the wings, you breathe in through your nostrils and your wings go up. And you count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you breathe out to the count of 6 with pursed lips, and your wings go down. Okay, so that's the butterfly breathing. And then you also have the, so then we have the cookie breathing. When you bake cookies, they smell good, so you're gonna smell the cookie, so you're gonna breathe in, and the cookie is hot, so you're gonna breathe out to cool the cookie down. So we have different ways of having children do breathing exercises. All right, so mindfulness is also teaching children how to be mindful, how to ground themselves, and how to be aware of what's going on with them. And so being aware of your own thoughts. So mindfulness is very, very helpful. And so one way for grounding is to use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let me stop my screen share again so that you can see me. So it's 5, right? So the first thing you're going to, and it's using your 5 senses. So the first thing you're going to do is ask the child to try to find 5 things that are, let's say, blue in this room. And so they would name 5, point out to 5 things. The cabinet, there's blue on the couch, there's blue right here in that stand, there is blue in the artwork up there. So 5 things that are blue, and then 4 things they could touch 4 surfaces. Touch the table, like you can want to mix it up so that it's like things that are rough and soft, so they can touch 4 surfaces. And then really feel the texture in the 4 surfaces. And then after that, there's 3 things. What you want to do is to listen for 3 different sounds. And then 2 things would be to smell. You can smell your body odor. You could smell if you have incense or something in the room that they could smell, but you want to be aware of allergies though. And the other thing, that the last one is taste. If there's like you have mints or a piece of like grapes or something for taste, but always be aware of allergies. Okay. Let me go back to screen share. All right. Okay, so the other thing in terms of techniques of coping with anxiety is you want to be able to talk back to the thoughts. I always tell kids you don't have to believe every thought that comes to your mind, and you don't have to act on them. You can just let the thought pass, and as a cloud passing in the sky. So, so you don't have to talk back, and you can also talk back to the thoughts, like, not today, leave me alone. I'm busy right now. I choose not to do that. I choose not to act on that thought. Right. Okay, so treating ants. In order to deal with unwanted ants, this is a review. You want to catch them. You want to be aware of the ants. So you want to catch yourself with the thoughts, check them, do they make sense? Sometimes, like for example, I was at my office And I'm in a house, so we have an oven, and I used the oven before I left the office. When I got home, I thought, wow, I hope I did turn the oven off. Because there are times when I did go back and check, and it was a good thing I went back and checked. So I had to get in my car in the middle of the night and drive all the way to my office and make sure that I did turn off the oven. And when the thought came, the thought didn't make sense because I had done it before, like didn't do what I was supposed to do, and then I left the oven on or the iron on. So it did make sense. And so I went to the office, and lo and behold, the oven was off. But it was worth the drive because then I had peace of mind. But if I was an anxious person, or more anxious than I am, I would be going back 3 or 4 times to check to make sure, or did I really? And at that point, I probably would have had OCD, right? Then you want to change the thought by turning the negative thought into an accurate thought or helpful thought. And that's the key. If I change the thought, it needs to be an accurate thought. So the ants concept, check what the ant is trying to warn you, because the ant might be trying to warn you that something bad might happen. So we want to check, because in that situation where I went back to my office to check, it was good. It was saying, you better make sure, and I'm glad I went because I had made that mistake before. So checking the ant is important because it may be a warning that you need to pay attention to your behavior. I am constantly thinking about food. So exactly, I'm constantly thinking about food, let's say. I am tempted to overeat. Catastrophizing ant shows up and gets me to think about food. I am thinking about food. Why am I thinking about food? Maybe the ant needs me to pay attention to the fact that I may be headed for weight gain if I don't stop. I could be a catastrophe. It could be a catastrophe. I'm already overweight and have high blood pressure. So that's an example of how the ant might be warning you to. It might be a good warning, right? What to say to yourself if the ant is not helpful. And mine, so I had a 8-year-old that I work with, and we came up with some comical things that we could say, and we just use humor. And mine is, well, who let the ants out? So if you have an ant and you have this bugging thought, and it's obsessive, and it doesn't make sense, you could ask yourself, well, okay, who let the ants out? Or you could say, I'm bigger and stronger than an ant. A little ant can't bully me. A tiny ant can't bully me. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do whatever the ant wants me to do. Or I could say to myself, ants are not real. Thoughts can't hurt me, but I can examine them to see if there is a message I need to pay attention to. So these are some things that I teach the children that I work with in order to manage their anxiety. This is what you say to ants, depending on which one. So this could be, if it's a blaming ant, what do you want me to know? Is it that I need to stop blaming others and take responsibility? Well, thanks for showing up. Otherwise, don't disturb me right now. Right? So that's something cute that you could work on. And then there's exposure therapy. And again, you need advanced training for exposure therapy, but it's gradual exposure to an event or stimulus that causes anxiety. That can help, and anxiety can help train individuals to cope with the experience. You cannot move forward if you keep protecting the distortion. A lot of times parents protect the distortion. So in order to move forward when you have anxiety, you need to face the fear. But if you keep protecting the distortion, you're not going to move forward. Clients need to be in a stage of preparation and intent on changing before they can effectively participate in exposure therapy. It's kind of. Okay, so parenting skills. What do parents need to know? You need to educate your parents about anxiety, what it is, and how it's manifested. So if you're working with a child, you want to work with the parents. have parents explore how their behavior may be influencing the child's anxiety. And then sometimes defiance shows up in an anxious child, and it may be due to fear and inability to control their inner fears and worries. The child cannot control their inner feelings, therefore they seek to control the environment and those and others in it, right? So that's really important to know, because the parent might see the child as being disrespectful and rude and acting out, but it's the anxiety a lot of times that causes the child to be fearful. But you don't want to punish the child because of the anxiety. You want them to know that part of what they're experiencing is part of their anxiety, could be part of their anxiety, and teach them how other ways to manage their anxiety. You need to be firm. No, young lady, you're not going to speak to me that way. I'm the parent. I can see that you're anxious and worried right now, but let's do some deep breathing and get calm, and then just take a time out, take a break, and then we can come back to we can talk about this some more later. So parents need to know that anxiety is very contagious, and we don't want the parent should not protect the distortion. So sometimes what parents do is try to make things easy for the child by not challenging the child to go further or to take appropriate risk. And parents might try to fix everything, make everything nice and comfortable for the child, but then the child remains in an anxious state. The parents should not overfunction for the child. Some parents overdo. You never do for a child what they can do for themselves. And if we overfunction for children, they'll never be able to face their fear and anxiety. We want to use empathy and acceptance and show that we are concerned and that we are trying to understand. So we want to accept the child, not accept the disruptive behaviors, because children that have a lot of anxiety can be very destructive and in the environment and with their behavior. Coach the child to self-soothe and identify cognitive distortions. Children need ways to soothe themselves, even by holding a stuffed animal and rocking, maybe singing a song, listening to music, coloring. There are different ways a child can self-soothe, and it doesn't always have to involve someone else. Go to your room and lay down. I grew up my background is also West Indies. I grew up in Panama, and one of the things that was customary is that if you were not feeling well, or if you're feeling sort of sad, your parents would say, "Go lay in my bed," because laying in your parents' bed was like a privilege, and so just being able to have that privilege sort of helped you to feel better automatically. All of a sudden you feel so good, and it sort of releases the dopamine, I guess, and the oxytocin. And so gratefulness is also another way to release dopamine. When you think of things that because you go to a happy place, things that you're grateful for, things that you're thankful for. I got the privilege of laying in my parents' bed. And so that in itself can be uplifting. Coach the child on how to talk back to the ants. Which ant is bugging you? Tell the ant to leave you alone. Not today. Facilitate exposure based on the therapist's instructions. Seek evaluation by child psychiatrist if medication if anxiety is severe and unmanageable. Some children need medication to take the edge off the anxiety so that they can calm down, because too much anxiety can be traumatizing to a child, because then they can get into a state of destructive behavior. And so anti-anxiety medication sometimes can be useful. And then once the child gets a hold of their stuff, you can wean them off. Helpful phrases that children need to hear. And this was taken from this website. It says that the child can, so the parent, if the child is having a meltdown because of anxiety, the parent can say, I'm here and you are safe. I'm here and you are safe. Tell me about your fears. What's bothering you? Show me how big your anxiety is right now, right? I want to get this. So we have this is a Hoberman sphere, and you can ask the child to show you how big the anxiety is. So if this is big, this is as big as it gets, the child could say it's this big, or it's this big. And they can also use it to show you that the anxiety is getting better. It's getting smaller, smaller, smaller. It's gone. So this is a Hoberman sphere, and there's a bigger size and there's a small size. And I like to, and this is a way of scaling, or you could ask a child on a scale of 10 to 1, with 10 being a lot of anxiety and 1 being very little anxiety. Where's your anxiety right now? Is it up there with the 10, or is it down there with the 1? What's the number in between? Having the child scale. They could draw a picture of their worry and talk about it. They can also take Play-Doh and make the anxiety. You can make a figure and make the anxiety, and then they can talk back to the worry, tell it to leave you alone, but come back when it's really, really necessary. But don't bother me when I'm trying to get work done. So they can talk back to the worry. And then something the child can also hear, let's change the ending. Okay, so you're anxious, you're worried right now. But it can have a good ending. The parent can say, which calming strategy do you want to use? So, Mom, I'm anxious, I'm nervous. Okay, well, which calming strategy do you want to use? You want to go color? You want to go write in your journal? You want to turn on some music? Which calming strategy do you want to use? The child can say, oh, Mom, it's scary. And Mom can say, and, you're safe with me, right? So these are some tips that parents can use. Parents can say, well, what do you need from me right now? The child is saying, I'm anxious. And the parent can say, what do you need from me right now? Maybe you need a hug. Maybe you need some reassurance. And this feeling will pass. Don't let your brain get stuck. You're safe. You've conquered this before. You have a plan. I was working with a 11-year-old who has work with her anymore, but she had a fear of thunderstorms and lightning. And when there was a big storm and there was lightning, she could hear the thunder and the storm. She would get her book bag, a specific book bag that was packed with some necessities, and she would take that and then she would go to the basement of the house. And that was her way of dealing with her anxiety, is removing herself from the situation and going to the basement, right? She had a plan. And then this too shall pass. I can be calm. I want to show that to you. Okay, so if you take your hand and it goes like this. So do your hand like this. And it goes, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. So this is a mantra. And so if you do yoga, there is Mata Sa, I don't know the real original mantra, but someone came up with this, and I don't know who it was. I certainly didn't, but it goes, this too shall pass. So it's a way to self-soothe and a way to self-calm. This too shall pass. Or I can be calm. I can be calm. The children really remember this and they use it. I'm really surprised. They'll say, Ms. Hines, I've been doing this. I remember. And even without my asking, they have something tangible to add to their toolbox that they can use. This too shall pass. I can be calm. You can come up with your own, you know. One of the boys said, I right now am calm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to move down to some, I have a card game, but this is the homework sheet. This is a homework sheet that I use. And so this is it. So the front of it, you have an event, what happened. So the child would just a brief, so a few lines on an event while they're home. And then for the negative thought, what did they automatically say to themselves that was so negative? And then which ant, because it's catching yourself and then checking. So you want to see which ant is causing the negative thought. You want to circle the ant. And then you want to be aware of what is going on in your body response. You know, is it your heart's rate? You know, you're breathing heavily. It's a typo right there, I noticed. And so, you know, so what's going on with your body? You want to circle. And what's the feeling, that emotion that goes along with it? And then what did you do? So it's thinking, feeling, doing. Okay. And then which coping skill did you, okay, so before we get to the coping skill, what did you say to the ant? What did you say to the ant? Leave me alone, not today. Thanks for the reminder. And then what did you learn? What coping skill did you use in order to get through this? You can have the child draw a picture of the situation. And this is a reminder of the cognitive triangle: thinking, feeling, doing. So I give it to the child, and I let the parent know that I gave the homework. I give it to them in a folder and have them, and just ask them to bring it back. If I just give them the paper, they might get crumbled, but I put it in a folder in a large envelope and ask them to bring it back. So this is a metaphor. This is a metaphor. These are a metaphor that I came up with. And using weeds. Weeds are a metaphor for how quickly situations can get out of control. So the ant situation, or negative thoughts, can grow and get out of control very quickly. Just like you can have an ant invasion very quickly, weeds invade your garden very quickly, and you can have a mess. So just like the ants, we need to be aware of the weeds, right? So what are 5 ways in which weeds are like ants? Weeds show up, but they spread very easily. They're hard to get rid of. The weeds sort of imitate. They kind of hide in the plant so that they are easily mistaken for a real plant. You know, just like the negative thoughts might be mistaken for a legitimate thought that's not harmful. The weeds also, they kind of have a mind of their own. And the weeds, this is important, because with weeds, you want to pull the weeds from the root. Because if we just pull the weed and if we don't get the root, they will come back. And so like with anxiety, we want to get to the root of the problem. Okay. So those are some, okay. So we want to water the flowers, not the weeds. If you have any additional ideas about how to treat the, how to other ideas, other metaphors regarding the weeds and the flowers, please write them down. And then it says here, these are some common sayings. I will not, some quotes from Mahatma Gandhi said, I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. And that the dirty feet for me is those negative thoughts, right? So don't let those dirty thoughts, not dirty, but negative thoughts walk through your mind. Just like Mahatma Gandhi said that he uh, would not let anyone walk through his mind with dirty feet. So we can process this and at how it relates to negative self-talk. A therapeutic art activity to help clients identify their strengths and virtues. He or she has that can combat the ants. So the client is given a template of either their foot or their shoes, and I'll show you right here. So the child can identify their strengths because their strengths give them the courage to stomp out the ant. Let's go back to that. So the strength in your foot because you want to stomp out those unhelpful ants. So the girl said that she was brave, she was strong, she's excited, she's happy, and she's proud. And that's given her the strength to stomp out those negative thoughts. And this is taken from Pinterest. And so this is actually the child, the teen, having a copy of the bottom of their sneakers and coloring them and making art out of it as a way of empowerment. And I want to show you this because this is what I had an artist do. That person worked in my office. And this is a pizza pan that we got from Walmart. And what she did was make slices, pie slices, and each slice was a different coping skill. So this is yoga. So yoga is good for mindfulness. This is time away, like just taking time away and not necessarily time out from the parent, but just saying, okay, I'm going to just kind of take time away and on my own to kind of get my thoughts and to relax and get my stress under control. This is counting backwards from 10 to 1. And what I do also is because kids like to learn new things and they get excited about learning new things, I ask them to count backwards in Spanish if they know how. If they can't, then I spend some time teaching them how to count in Spanish. That's also a way for them to engage with me and a way for them to learn a new technique. And this is blowing bubbles. And it is blowing, when you blow bubbles, you have to take a deep breath and blow. But you want to blow slow because then the slower you blow, the bigger the bubble gets, right? And it doesn't burst real fast because you want the kids to not just blow, 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 but you want them to take deep breaths and make some big bubbles. This is the hookup, like I showed you before. This is what that is, the hookup. And this is blowing, taking deep breaths. And this is a child talking to an adult. So you can talk to an adult as part of your coping skills. This is stepping on ants or getting rid of the ants that are not useful. Okay, so you have yoga, time away, counting backwards, blowing bubbles, taking the hookup, taking deep breaths, and talking to an adult. So these are just 9. And then I have darts, because this is a magnetic board. I have it mounted to the wall. And then I have darts. And what the child throws the darts at these coping skills. And then as they throw the darts, then after they've thrown the darts and had fun with the darts, then what we do is talk about the coping skills, which is their favorite, which ones they like to use. So it's about playing and learning and having fun, but it's also about teaching coping skills. This is a fun activity that we do in therapy. That's the play therapy part of it. So these are worry dolls. We make worry dolls out of clothespin and embroidery thread. and I do a workshop on the use of art. And that's one of the things we do is we make worry dolls. And then this is a great metaphor. I found this toy at a yard sale, actually. And it's a gorilla that's in a cage. And when you press the on button, it says, excuse me, can you let me out of here? And so anxiety is like being trapped. It's like being in jail. The client can identify what it is like to be trapped by your own fears. And it's going to be a reminder that you can get trapped in those mind. So these are some other activities. This is an activity that I came up with, and we can use darts and have the child throw darts, and they can aim for courage. When you have anxiety, there's lack of courage, lack of self-confidence, and self-control and things like that, focus. So they can do this, and also they can use, this is a bow and arrow, except that the arrow is a ball. You pull this out, you pull this part out, and then you hook it up with a string and you shoot we aim for one of these, right? The target, you shoot the target. So that's good. This is a video that we're not going to watch right now. And these stones, I got these stones at a conference. And I use this a lot with my trauma clients. And I just have them at the end of sessions, I just have them to choose one and to reflect on it, depending on where they are. So it's very, very powerful. I am safe. I am strong. I am enough. I am worthy. I'm lovable, and I'm special. It's also useful for a sand tray. If you're doing a sand tray, you can use these. And so this is some books, Helping Your Anxious Child, OCD, Relaxation is a Worry, Worrying You, What to Do When You Worry Too Much. And these are some anxiety cure for kids. And so these are some really good activities. And this is a t-shirt that I designed, Who Let the Ants Out? And I run a summer camp. And 1 year, the theme for the camp was dealing with anxiety. It's a therapeutic camp. And so it's a therapeutic day camp, Who Let the Ants Out? And so the kids really learned about the different ants. So that's my presentation today. I raced through this presentation, but actually this presentation is like a 2-3 hour presentation. Thank you so much. And I enjoyed talking with you. And I hope this has been useful to you. Thank you very much.